To say things got shaken up at the top of the draft this year, today, is an understatement. The Panthers moved all the way up from 9 to number 1, and in the process, the Bears acquired star Panthers receiver DJ Moore, multiple top picks, a first, a second. It was unbelievable what the Bears were able to get back, but that is the price just for a lottery ticket at a top quarterback. And in this mock draft, we're going to hopefully figure out who that is. This was originally going to be a Saints rebuild upload today. I don't know what I'm going to do now with that. I'll probably just upload it anyway. Not too much will change with that video, but they are in that same division. But that'll probably be tomorrow. And tomorrow I'm actually going to be on Twitch, twitch.tv/Bengal. I'm doing a throwback Black Ops 2 tournament that I'm hosting for some other YouTubers and such. So that should be a fun time if in the NFL community. Throne is going to be in it, but also some of my MLB The Show buddies with that game coming out. Magunsky, Cougs. So it should be a good time. Check it out on Twitch. It'll be live tomorrow afternoon and into the night. So check that out. But enough of that. It is football time, and we're going to go ahead and start this draft. It's going to be a little bit of a weird one, but we're going to start here with CJ Stroud, maybe the best quarterback in the draft. You know, people are going to think one way or the other with the top quarterbacks. It's just going to be the way that it is. These top 4 QBs, depending on what you're looking for, could be ranked pretty closely, but seems like the Panthers seem to be leaning towards CJ Stroud. And I emphasize seem because we don't really know. They could be, hyping up it one way or the other, depending on some of the leaks. But now that they have the number 1 overall pick, there's no reason to. So I think it could end up being CJ Stroud, leaving the Texans at number 2 to go with Bryce Young. Doesn't have to necessarily be a quarterback here, but with Bryce Young on the board, the value seems pretty good at number 2 overall, so I wouldn't hesitate. And this is probably going to be the top 3 over the course of me doing these mock drafts for the next month and a half, 2 months, because I think Will Anderson will end up being the 3rd overall pick to the Cardinals. Now, I could see a world where it is Tyree Wilson or a trade out, but I think Will Anderson might be just the best player in the entire draft. So if you can get him at 3, why not? Especially when it's a position of need as well. Everything just comes together there for the Cardinals. I tweeted about this as well, and I said, this pick, unless the Cardinals do something weird, is where things start to get interesting because it's probably a quarterback spot. You got Will Levis there. You have Anthony Richardson there. You have potential trade down or other options, but I think they're going to stick and pick and go with a quarterback, and I think it's going to be the best athlete in the entire draft in Anthony Richardson. You just can't build a more athletic quarterback than this. And then the detractors will say, well, that's all he is an athlete. He can't play quarterback. And I would challenge that. I think if you've actually watched him play, I did a TikTok breakdown. I know the highest form of football content, but I showed just even a drive from Anthony Richardson talking about, hey, his completion percentage, which everyone cites, isn't so good because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe it's the structure of the offense. Maybe it's the receivers either not getting open or dropping the ball, which happened routinely. But Anthony Richardson, as a 1-year starter, can play. I just would like to see him develop. It may not happen. He could end up being a big-time bust. Everyone has potential to go that direction, but if you hit on Anthony Richardson, you've hit a home run, and that's obviously the hope and why you'd spend a top 5 pick on him. Seahawks at number 5 is where things also could potentially get interesting. You got Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson on the board. Those are the top 2 guys I would consider right here. I think they're going to end up going defensive line, not only based on the positional value, but given their team needs and the players on the board. Just makes sense. Now, the question is, do they stay with Jalen Carter, who might be the best player in the draft, but has some potential off-the-field concerns? Or do you take Tyree Wilson, who is also a freak athlete, but flying off the edge as opposed to on the interior where it's a little bit tougher to find those guys? I'm going to end up going with Tyree Wilson. I think that could upset some Seahawks fans. I know that it might. I don't care. I could go Jalen Carter next mock draft. Things could change, but the reason I've decided to go on Tyree Wilson is because I've heard rumors that the Seahawks are very personality and I would say culture-oriented right now, and they don't want another Malik McDowell type situation. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it isn't, but that's the reason why I'm going away from Jalen Carter and going with Tyree Wilson, who's also a very good prospect in his own right. It could be Jalen Carter. It wouldn't shock me, but I've decided to go a different direction here. But to the Lions, Jalen Carter's here. Like, it could go either way for me. I do think he still ends up going in the top 10. Top 8 probably, I think, is his absolute ceiling. And I don't think he even gets to the Bears. So I think right in this range, 5, 6, 7, 8, Jalen Carter will be one of those picks if I had to bet. And I'm going to take him here at number 6 to the Lions. It's a big need for them, but he's also a really, really good player. And I think if you're going to get him into a great situation, go play under Dan Campbell. He's going to fire the guys up. He's got those guys loving the Lions. I mean, I feel like if you talk to any player around the league, they would say we had the most fun playing for Dan Campbell opposed to any other coach. And that's just what it seems like. I know the Lions are a team that didn't even make the playoffs this past year, but it seems like they're having a great time. And they're developing. They got picks. They have talent. And they need to continue to take talent. And if Jalen Carter's there, sometimes you just have to go BPA. Raiders at 7. I've done this a lot, but I don't really see any need to not do it. Raiders are going to need a quarterback. Derek Carr, we know, was cut and then signed with the Saints. Raiders need a QB. I think you take a swing on Will Levis if he's here at 7. I'm not a massive Will Levis fan. I see a world where he develops and ends up being a really solid quarterback because of the arm talent and things like that. But, there are some questions with him. Hopefully Josh McDaniels, for the Raiders' sake, can figure him out and develop him. He is the pick at 7. And then at 8. 8 is where I have a real problem. I have a real problem with this pick because the Falcons need help on defense. And with Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter off the board, who do you take? Because you probably drop down another tier. Is it Myles Murphy, right? Is it Lucas Van Ness, who's got a lot of hype and for good reason? Lucas Van Ness is very, very good. And I think it pretty much would come down to someone on the defensive line. I think it's a little bit early for Kalijah Kancey. So this is really going to end up being an edge player for me. And it's this question of, is it LVN? Is it Nolan Smith a little bit early? Is it Myles Murphy? And I am going to end up going with Lucas Van Ness. And it's pretty much coming down to what the Falcons already have. You spent a pretty high-end pick on Arnold Ebiketie last year, second rounder. And he's got a lot of juice off the edge. Can fly. Speed rush type. Lucas Van Ness is the absolute power. Set the edge, play good run defense, and be a bulldozer off the edge on the other side. So I think it's just a good fit for their defense. For that same reason, you might go ahead and consider Myles Murphy. Nolan Smith is a great athlete, but has some power to his game as well. Although I would consider him more of a speed rush type because of his athletic ability. But Lucas Van Ness, people are going to call a reach. I don't really think it's a reach. I think this is about his range. 8, 9, 10, 12. I think he goes somewhere in there. I could see him dropping a bit, maybe to the Packers. But I think Lucas Van Ness is worth a top 10 pick. We'll have to see how he develops. I don't know if he's ever going to be the most flashy, but I think he's just going to be one of those really solid players that ends up having a long career and is just a contributor on a good defense and someone that maybe is a little bit underrated. Maybe doesn't necessarily put up those high-end sack numbers, but you need those guys in a defense. And who knows? He could end up becoming a dominant pass rusher if he develops more than just speed to power, bull rush. I do like him as a prospect quite a bit. Great athlete. Lit up the combine, as you may know. Bears at number 9. This is another tough one because now Lucas Van Ness is off the board. I feel like that would have been a pretty good fit for Chicago at 9. And what do I end up doing instead? I'm going to go Peter Skoronski. Maybe the top overall offensive lineman in the class. For the Bears, you move all the way down, but you can still pick up maybe the best offensive lineman. Feels like pretty good value for them if they do stay on the board. Skoronski has shorter arms, so maybe he doesn't stick at tackle. I know Tevin Jenkins, who started out as right tackle, moved inside to guard. Still have a need on the interior of the offensive line. So maybe you try out Skoronski at tackle if you think he can work there. And then if not, you got a pretty solid guard and maybe even a center if you had to do it in a pinch. Although you're drafting him to play tackle or guard, I would say. Skoronski, very, very technically sound. A good enough athlete, even if he's not, he doesn't have the long arms that you look for. He does have good athleticism for the position, even if it's not like otherworldly top tier. I just think he's a good pick for the Bears to develop that offense, put talent around Justin Fields, see what you got. Let's invest in the offense. And then at number 10, had the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to repeat a pick that I did pretty recently, and I still see the value in it, and it's going to end up being Nolan Smith at 10. Building up that Georgia group, I know Daniel Jeremiah has compared Nolan Smith to Hassan Reddick, so see how good Hassan Reddick is for Philadelphia. Try to build Nolan Smith into that same mold, use him maybe as a designated pass rusher at first, and then continue to develop his game and ends up maybe being a replacement for Josh Sweat. You can do a number of different things, but can never have enough pass rushers, and we know Howie Roseman loves his defensive lineman. Nolan Smith, really good fit for the scheme as well, building up that Georgia group, teams up with former teammates at Georgia, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. I just like the fit at 10, and he tears up the combine. I don't think I'm going to take so much heat for this now. At Tennessee, at number 11, this is a weird one that's going to set up something that people are not going to like, and it's just going to be how it goes. I'm having Tennessee trade down, and it's not necessarily just because they're trading down. You got to have somebody to move up. And have you noticed anything that's a little bit bizarre compared to some of my usual mocks, where maybe I have the Lions doing something at 6 or the Eagles doing something at 10? Usually is a corner off the board at this point. So when you have some potential corner needy teams coming up, why not trade up, get in front of that, and get arguably the best corner in the entire draft? So I am going to have the Washington Commanders move up for a corner. You have a couple of compensatory picks in here that could be used to package in, maybe even move, 118 or number 97. Could be a combination, could be a future 5 thrown in there as well. Don't know exactly, just trying to make the trade work. But it shouldn't cost a tremendous amount. But with this pick, the Commanders, who could use offensive line as well, end up going with maybe the best corner in the entire draft. Another guy who lit up the combine as expected, but is so fluid for his size, has great tape. Christian Gonzalez from Oregon just seems to be a fantastic fit for the Commanders here that do need to upgrade badly at corner, even if offensive line is needed as well. Like, yes, all the tackles besides Skoronski are still on the board, but so were the corners. So why not just jump ahead of the Texans, Jets, and especially the Patriots? The Patriots would be the real threat to take corner, even though the Texans could. But get Christian Gonzalez. Maybe the Patriots would be calling about that pick as well. I think that has potential to happen. And then I'm still going to get weird, and I'm going to have the Texans move down slightly. And why is that? Well, I'm going to have the Patriots moving up. The Patriots in this situation, in this scenario, would be jumping the Jets, who are looking for a tackle. Will the Jets even have this pick by the time the mock draft comes out? Who knows? Because the rumor right now is Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. We can't pretend. I'm not going to put that in right now. We'll see if it ends up happening. That'll be another video if it does. But I'm going to have the Patriots move up marginally. They have so many picks. This is usually a trade down team, but when you have this type of draft capital, you can afford to move up. It's only a couple of spots. I don't think the asking price would be tremendous. So we're going to go ahead and trade here. The Patriots move up. In this scenario, they jump the Jets for the top tackle on their draft board. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and plug that in as Broderick Jones. Like Isaiah Wynn from Georgia. I don't know why that would matter here, but another Georgia tackle added to the mix. The Patriots need help on the offensive line, and in particular, offensive tackle. Broderick Jones is still developing, but is a phenomenal athlete, and I think would be a really good addition to this Patriots team, and is, I think, maybe the best tackle in the entire draft when you consider upside. And then the Jets at 13, well, Broderick Jones just got taken right in front of him. Patriots didn't want to roll the dice. They just stick and pick and go Paris Johnson from Ohio State. They need tackle. It's been a tackle from the entire year. If they have to move down and wait until the second round to take a tackle, it could be slim pickings, because at that point, maybe it's DeJuan Jones, maybe it's Matthew Bergeron, maybe it's Jalen Duncan, Cody Mock, who might even be better at guard. Like, you might lose out Anton Harrison in that conversation as well. You might lose out on the tackle you want, but is getting Aaron Rodgers worth it? It probably is. The guy that won 2 MVPs in 2020 and 2021. I still think he can play. And then we have the Texans at 14. Now, I've had a trend here of letting the receivers fall down the board. We're going to mix that up today and give Bryce Young a weapon, and that's going to be Jordan Addison from USC by way of Pittsburgh. Jordan Addison, really, really good route runner, and just a good fit. Gives something to Bryce Young that he's never really had the pleasure of having, which is a real true step, or at least not in 2022, excuse me. I know in in 2021, there were some dynamic receiving threats as well. But especially in 2022, it was real bad. I think Jordan Addison could be a fantastic addition to that receiving core. Who knows if you're going to even have Brandon Cooks? You probably won't, is what it looks like. So got to go ahead and go for a receiver here, and that is Jordan Addison. Packers at 15. This one's a little bit tough for me. But I'm going to end up going with Devin Witherspoon. I think that Brian Branch is great value, but Witherspoon could even potentially play safety for you and be really good. But this is a potential boundary or nickel corner. He has the chops to play on the outside, so you don't have to move him to nickel, even though he's a little bit undersized compared to what the modern corner is starting to look like. But plays fast, plays really, really aggressive, is not afraid to hit. Like, that is abundantly apparent if you watch him. He is not afraid to come up and level you. And I think for the Packers, you would be just thrilled with this value. And we know in the past, they're not afraid to take a smaller corner and develop that player. Jair Alexander, about 5'10", coming out of Louisville. And I don't think that number has changed. He's still about 5'10". And then I hyped this pick up a little bit. It's the Titans at 16. I said I was going to get weird. I think some of you might know where I'm going with this. And that is scrolling down the board a bit and taking Bijan Robinson, running back, Texas. Derrick Henry trade rumors are swirling. If you are able to trade down, get some extra draft capital, and still get one of the best players in the draft, we know the Titans love to run the football. I think it would be tough for them to pass on the offensive line group, but I've had Broderick Jones to the Titans like a billion mock drafts in a row. We're going to mix it up and take one of the best players in the entire draft. Titans love to run the football. Love it. If you don't have Derrick Henry, what do you have? Bijan Robinson, I think, is a very good replacement for them. And would be another Titans first-round pick out of Texas. Shout out to Vince Young. Hook 'em. Steelers at 17. We're going to elevate someone a bit. Top tackles are off the board. I think the Steelers are a team that considered trading up. Darnell Wright. I said it, I tweeted out maybe a month ago, I thought was a really good fit for the Steelers. He's starting to generate some buzz as maybe even offensive tackle 1 in the class, so he could go higher than this. I know there's some great corners on the board. It would be really tough to pass on Joey Porter Jr. at this spot, continue the bloodline, but this is a really good corner class. When you look at the offensive line group, there is a drop-off. There's a drop-off. So do you wait for number 32, where you can take a corner? Maybe Joey Porter Jr. is off the board. He probably is. Deonte Banks probably off the board. Starting to look at maybe Cam Smith, Emmanuel Forbes, Tyreek Stevenson. These are really good options in round 2 that could be there. And for the Steelers, grab the top offensive tackle available, maybe in the entire draft. Wait for corner with number 32. Lions at 18. I think this is pretty good value for them. Their first pick was Jalen Carter, and you just might grab another one of the best players in the entire draft, and that is Brian Branch from Alabama. He played the star role for them. That's their nickel corner. He traveled. He moved all around, even played some reps over the top, in the boundary, or on the boundary, I should say. He's a fantastic defensive back, but is best, playing near the football, in the nickel role, in the box. Brian Branch is a tremendous talent, and I think a really good fit for the Lions that are just trying to get talent. Yeah, boundary corner, I think, is absolutely an option here, especially with Joey Porter Jr. available. But I'm a huge Brian Branch fan. I think anytime you can grab a versatile DB, it's not a bad option. And then for the Bucs, I am going to stop the fall of Joey Porter Jr. I don't know if he goes inside the top 10. I think he could. I think somewhere in this range is a little bit more likely. And for the Bucs, that could be losing Jamel Dean in free agency. Corner is a glaring need. I think it could be Brian Branch if he gets to number 19 as well. Losing Sean Murphy-Bunting could get us another safety in there anyway. But Joey Porter Jr. is the pick, and I feel like that is pretty good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Seahawks at 20. Man, you got some options. Took Tyree Wilson at number 5. And the player I'm going with here is... it's going to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, actually. In the mock I did leading up to this, I had Osiris Torrance. But I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to go JSN here at number 20. And that could complicate things for some other mock draft picks that I made in advance. We're just going to cross that bridge when we get to it. And we're going to start here with the Chargers. I am going to go receiver. I'm going to go Zay Flowers from Boston College. I did this last time. People didn't like the size profile, but sometimes you got to mix it up. Chargers need speed. Maybe take Quentin Johnson for that speed. But listen, you can't always get receivers that are bigger than 6 foot tall that can run as well as a guy like Zay Flowers does. You need speed in that offense. That's Zay Flowers. Get a different type of receiver. You can play the slot, mix Keenan Allen on the outside in the slot. I know he's been so effective in the slot over the years. Mike Williams is obviously an outside receiver, but get Zay Flowers inside outside. But I think he can eat in the slot and add a much needed element of speed into that offense, make it a little bit more dynamic, hit some deep bombs to Justin Herbert. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then the Ravens at 22. I originally had this as JSN. Now, I don't know if that is exactly what the Ravens would be looking for. I'm not sure that's a huge need for them. Slot receiver, I should say. But he's just a playmaker. I like JSN a lot. Would the Ravens? Not sure. I think Zay Flowers would have been a good fit for them here at 22. He doesn't quite make it there. So I think I'm going to go ahead, and even with the abundance of talented corners on the board, I'm going to go receiver. I'm going to go Quentin Johnston. I don't know that this is, again, another great fit for them. He's kind of a body catcher, but has a ton of athleticism. I think he would add some juice and size to the offense. He's just got to start to play a little bit bigger. But if he can develop as a receiver, you got a really, really great weapon in Quentin Johnston because he is one of the best athletes in the draft as well. Vikings at 23. I think receiver would be in play if JSN was here, if Zay Flowers, even if Quentin Johnston was available, maybe you think about it. But corner is a disaster for them right now. The super athletic Deonte Banks is on the board. That's the pick. Not going to debate on that too long. And then we get the Jags here at 24. In the initial one I did, I had Dalton Kincaid. Jags are not going to want a tight end here, Jags fans, because you just franchise tagged Evan Ingram. Who knows if you're going to sign him to an extension? They could be looking for a tight end anyway, and I think this could end up being a tight end. But now with O'Cyrus Torrence making it to 24 and not getting picked at 20, he's going to be my pick here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that leaves the Giants on the clock at number 25. You guys know I'm a Giants fan. This is always a really, really tough pick for me. And it's going to be a tough pick for the Giants. Receivers are flying off the board maybe a little bit faster than expected. But we are going to take a receiver. It's Josh Downs from UNC. Originally, I had Josh Downs instead of Quentin Johnston when the board fell that way. I like Josh Downs a lot. He's one of the best receivers in the entire draft. He's a little bit smaller, but I don't know that he's a slot receiver the way a guy like Jackson Smith and Jigba or with the Giants already, Wan'Dale Robinson is. Josh Downs can win on the outside, and he's got a pretty large catch radius for a smaller guy and can win the 50-50 balls. Josh Downs plays way bigger than his size, so I don't think he's a slot receiver in the same way that Jackson Smith and Jigba is. I really, really like Josh Downs. I would be very happy if the Giants took him at 25. At least that's how I feel right now. We'll see how his career pans out, but that's how I feel about him. I also like Tyler Scott a bit, but I'm a big Josh Downs guy. I think he could end up getting into round 1. That's exactly what happens here. Cowboys at 26, probably not very happy about this run on receivers because they could be in the market for them. Instead, we're going to go with tight end Dalton Kincaid. Replace one Dalton with another. Dalton Schultz could be finding a new home in free agency. Dalton Kincaid could represent tremendous value here at 26. I don't know. Tight end is a deep position in the draft. Teams could just take the guy they want early in the first round, or because of the talent, could just wait. Could wait. Wait until one falls into their laps. That's what happens for the Cowboys, and they get a top talent in the draft here at 26 because of the positional value. At 27 for the Buffalo Bills, don't worry, it's not Steve Avila. I've done Steve Avila quite a bit at this spot, and I still really, really think the Bills should go offensive line. I really, really do. And this originally, I'll tell you, was Quentin Johnston. He is no longer available. So how do we pivot here? And we gotta pivot because things always change. Maybe Joe Tippmann isn't the worst option. Steve Avila is just, oh God, it just makes so much sense that I always struggle to go a different direction. A safety, I think, is very much in play as well. I like Antonio Johnson a lot. Sidney Brown is here. Could we see a safety go round 1? Because I don't count Brian Branch as a safety necessarily. Antonio Johnson, I think the value works out to me. I don't know. This is a really tough pick. They need weapons at receiver too. I don't know who gets into the first round. I mean, you could take the speed threat of Jalen Hyatt. That's valuable. Tyler Scott's really good. I don't think he goes in the first round. I think Jalen Hyatt's like the only one who would have a chance of sneaking in here. This is a really tough pick for the Bills. I'm going to end up giving them a needs pick, and that maybe stinks, but Antonio Johnson's a really good player, maybe the best safety in the class. You can get him here at 27. I've been giving them offensive line a lot. We're mixing it up. Still could be offensive line, could be receiver, but this is probably the most receivers I've had going in the first round. So doesn't end up working out for Buffalo this time around. And then for the Cincinnati Bengals at number 28, it's got to be a tackle for me. Obviously some great tight ends still on the board, but it's going to end up being a tackle for me. I'm going to go Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma. Pure pass protecting offensive tackle, good athlete. What do the Bengals need? Offensive tackle. And now we have some talent falling in the draft. Brian Brzee, Kalijah Cansey, and for good reason, right? Myles Murphy, Michael Mayer. There's some great value here at 29 for the Saints. I am going to end up going with Kalijah Cansey. I've done it a lot. It could be any of these guys. It really could be. I'm not going to go Myles Murphy because they drafted Peyton Turner recently. Maybe you continue to try and develop him and take a more interior guy in Kalijah Cansey. You still have Marcus Davenport. You still have Cam Jordan. Maybe you don't have to go edge this year, even though you could. Myles Murphy is good value, but just didn't end up doing it here. And then for the Eagles, we went with Nolan Smith at 10. And I think the value is too good to not take Brian Brzee. I'm a big Brian Brzee fan. I think he's going to end up being a really good pro. And it was a great catch from me, by the way. Brian Brzee is just such good value at 30. And we know Howie Roseman loves to take defensive line. Beef up the interior, beef up the edge. I just think it would be an incredible draft for the Eagles if they were able to get Brzee at 30. And then that leaves the Texans. I'm not going to have them trade out. They are picking in Kansas City. Could make them want to actually keep their pick. And with Myles Murphy on the board, I know tackle is certainly in play, but I'm going to keep Myles Murphy inside the first round. We have the tight ends falling out of the first. It's a really talented tight end class. So Michael Mayer, to me, is not a guaranteed first-round pick. Same thing with Darnell Washington. They certainly could be. If the first tight end domino falls inside the teens, who knows? We could see a run on them. But it didn't happen here, and Myles Murphy closes out the first round for me. That is the mock draft. What are you guys going to hate the most? I'm trying to think. Myles Murphy falling to 31 is going to be a little bit weird to some of you, for sure. The Bills pick, probably at some point, but I think that's a good pick for them. I should have maybe done a tight end to the Jags at 24, even though people hate that. Joey Porter Jr. falling, maybe swap these two. You guys might have preferred that. Lucas Van Ness at 8 is just going to be culture shock type of thing to some of you. I don't know. And Bijan Robinson, of course, at 16, because running backs have no value and aren't good, and the Titans have Derrick Henry. But I'm kind of thinking they're going to trade him here, so that's why I did that. But that is the mock draft. It was interesting. But it's over now. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.